off for now, and let's say hello to everyone. Hello, we are Sam Expert, and this is the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement training, which we have updated for the last quarter of 2022. Those who saw the previous year's Enterprise Agreement training will probably see some repetitions today, but there are things that have changed since. And well, our knowledge updates, and therefore we're sharing this knowledge with you. I have my business partner Daryl with me today here. So hi, hello. About the initial time on LinkedIn, there was an error on LinkedIn. It was related to time zones. This is the actual starting time, so hopefully you're all here. Please, say hello. Please say where you're from, and we'll slowly start unwinding the presentation. I can see people connecting from on LinkedIn. So hello. We also obviously we're supposed to be live on YouTube. So let me check whether that's.
Yeah, we are live, Alex. We're absolutely live on YouTube as well. So all channels are going.
I can see it now. Good. All channels are live.
Yeah.
So this will be, as I already said, a Microsoft Enterprise Agreement training. So we're going to be talking today about the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement. Who we are, very quickly, for those who are first time on this channel, we are a company, a consulting boutique company called Sam Expert. We are based in the United Kingdom, and we have presences in other countries, and we have clients all over the world. We're on a mission to take complexity and other stuff out of Microsoft licensing and cloud. And what we do, very quickly, we don't want to bore you. Strategic cost and licensing planning, cloud migration planning, so everything that is related to cloud and Microsoft licensing related, Microsoft agreement negotiations, getting the right discounts out of Microsoft. For services providers, we have a whole range of offerings, starting from audit defense to day-to-day operations, improving the bottom line, looking at the top line. We have partners that help us, for SaaS providers, for example, help to find proper marketing niches. So if you're one of providers, ISV or a SaaS, please reach out to us. We have a lot to discuss. And obviously, these days it's all about cloud economics and FinOps. So hi everyone. Really nice to see you all. We have people from India, Northern Ireland, Turkey, Arab Emirates, United States. Hello. So very nice to see you all here today. This training will be recorded, so those who want to suddenly drop off mid live stream, by all means, please do. But we would like you to stay. Why? Because this is an interactive training. We plan to start publishing training materials, which will be just recorded videos. The beauty of live events is that you have an ability to actually talk to us. You have an ability to ask your questions and also talk to each other, but we'll get to that. So who we are again? So we are, right now, on this stream, we are the founders of Sam Expert. It's me, Alexander Gorev, and Daryl Ullman, whom you can see as well on screen. Daryl is my business partner, and we run this company together. Daryl is more responsible more for the negotiations part, as I call it, human skills. I'm more of a technically oriented, although I run the business. I have a geeky mind, and I like cracking Microsoft puzzles. Daryl, do you want to talk about yourself maybe a little?
Yes, absolutely. So thanks, Alex. I think we actually complement each other really nicely, and that's one of the big benefits and and advantages that we bring to our customer base. Alex, as he said, brings a more technical view, very in-depth, both from an infrastructure system, IT, development background, and a licensing, in-depth licensing background. And I bring a lot of negotiation skills. Alex calls it human skills. And together we basically are able to provide an end-to-end service, both all the way from initial licensing positioning documents to business analysis of service provider requirements, all the way to complex, multinational, global negotiation interactions, both on enterprise agreement, renewals, cloud contracts, and audit resolution. So I think that it's really as we keep saying and we're hearing back from our customers, we provide additional hours of sleep to our customers and more relaxed environment as we come in and we assist you with your needs and business challenges. Thanks, Alex.
Daniel, we have guests from Romania, from Ethiopia, and from the States. I mean, Atlanta.
And
I guess
Pakistan as well,
that's
Iowa.
Georgia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really
Iowa,
cool.
New York. Nice.
No, I think it's the
Great.
first time we've got a participant from Ethiopia, so welcome. Great to have you with us, and I hope you enjoy the session.
So if you want to stay in touch with us, and we have a lot to share, things that we share with the community, and a couple of next slides, I'll show you where. Please connect to us on LinkedIn. Those who are already on LinkedIn, it's very easy. You're already in our event, so it's easy to find us. And we also have a website, obviously someexpert.com, where you can always send us a message. So we have 2 channels where we share our knowledge right now, and we have another one coming up next. So this channel, if you're watching on LinkedIn right now, you can continue watching on LinkedIn. YouTube actually has a much better quality of video and audio. If you want to switch to YouTube and subscribe to our channel, there are almost actually more than 200 videos already on the channel about Microsoft licensing, cloud, and Microsoft economics. So why don't you subscribe to the channel? The short URL to get to the channel is someexpert.tv, and it'll get you to our YouTube channel through a redirect. We have a blog on our website where our best videos are also transformed into articles, and now we even started doing the opposite thing. We write an article first, and then we create videos based on the article. So these 2 sources, they somehow correlate. Some people like listening, some people like watching, some people like reading. So yeah, we try to address all the audiences. And as I said, we share knowledge. It really doesn't hurt sharing knowledge. Hi, Jitendra. So always nice to see you here. Thank you for your never-ending support. We wanted to announce today our upcoming training hub. So it's all blurred. There's nothing yet to see. So we will, in December, we're going to launch a commercial training hub. So for those of you who like watching free training on our YouTube channel, those trainings don't go anywhere. We'll continue live events and pre-recorded live events on YouTube, as we always have been doing. The platform will have it more structured, broken down into modules with downloadable materials, with potentially quizzes and certifications. So stay tuned. There's already 1 training uploaded, which we'll start selling soon. That is something that, by the way, we're not going to run on this channel because it's very, very niche specific. That is for service providers. All the aspects of service provider licensing. But again, stay tuned. Please make an impact during this live. We're starting soon. We're starting in kind of next 1 or 2 minutes. So ask your questions. That's the beauty of a live event, as I said. Answer each other's questions in the chat. We've seen previously really nice synergy, the vibe in the comments when people answered each other's questions in the comments. Please continue doing so because, well, you connect to other people. You make new friends. Please make suggestions for future events. And for example, please reach out to us and ask us what sort of next training would you like to see, whether that's about CSP or maybe there's a new SQL Server and you would like us to reshuffle the order of the sequence of modules of this live training, and you want to hear about SQL Server first, because the changes, by the way, are quite substantial in SQL Server. We need to release a video soon or an article. That's absolutely certain. The entire internet is already buzzing. If you're unhappy with what we're doing, please let us know. I mean, by all means, if you don't like it, click dislike, but better if you tell us why, so we can improve. Please click a like on YouTube, and please share this live right now, this live event, with your friends anywhere, because we want this to spread to more people to learn from our knowledge, from what we're sharing. So please help us spread awareness. If you're right now on Twitter, please share a link to this event on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and whatnot. Invite your friends. So what you will learn today, we are finally getting to the point when we'll start learning all about Enterprise Agreement. So last year we did a very long event which was about all Microsoft agreements. Now today we will talk just about Enterprise Agreement. Other agreements we'll cover in the next training modules. Stay tuned. We'll announce them on LinkedIn, we'll announce them on YouTube, and on our website as well. So those of you who are watching this training in the recorded form, please use chapters. I'll add chapters in the description, and look into the description for any useful links that I will add after this live show. So we'll update the description with chapters and useful links. So if you're watching this recording, and this is why I'm saying this, for those who will watch it tomorrow or maybe in even 2 or 3 hours from now, look in the description. Feel free to fast forward, rewind. This recording will stay here. Okay, so disclaimer. The important thing about this training is we are not Microsoft. Well, Microsoft doesn't provide trainings on licensing and agreements anymore. There is one Microsoft-related resource on the internet which is called Get Licensing Ready, where you can also learn about Microsoft licensing still. But otherwise, all the Microsoft activities are in the Azure area right now. So they don't care about licensing anymore. We do, and you do, and many people still do, because there are still companies who haven't even switched to Microsoft 365, and they still deal with traditional licenses. Always verify what we say here with Microsoft product terms. What we say here today and in all the other live events, that comes from our experience. That is about practical implementation. That is about practical challenges. These are our battle scars. So learn from our experience, learn from our mistakes. We're not trying to cover it all. We're just guiding you through the guiding principles of Microsoft licenses and license management. I just mentioned Microsoft product terms. I always recommend, so for today's session, it's not as relevant because we're going to be talking about agreements. But when we have sessions where we explain licensing, I always encourage you to open the URL on this slide, microsoft.com/licensing/terms, and verify everything we say against what's actually written right now in the current version of Microsoft product terms. Please bookmark that URL. This should be, if you're very serious about Microsoft licensing, this should be your go-to resource for everything that is official. I can't even, the number of questions I get in email, through the website, through LinkedIn, asking basic Microsoft licensing questions that have a very clear, not even ambiguous explanation in product terms is overwhelming. So by all means, I don't discourage you from asking us, but also please check all your knowledge and even what we say against what's written there. It's always a good practice. So Let's start with the introduction into Microsoft Licensing Agreement from the terms and the glossary that I am going to use throughout this training. I'd like you to understand all these terms. I'd like to understand them up front before I start mentioning software assurance on every second slide, for example. And we'll start with software assurance. So what is software assurance? Software assurance is an essential part of a Microsoft Enterprise Agreement. You may not buy a license through a Microsoft EA that doesn't have software assurance. What is it? Essentially, it is a subscription fee, which is in an enterprise agreement. It's an annual fee. So you pay it per year. With a few exceptions, we'll cover those exceptions when I will explain you how economics of an enterprise agreement exactly work. Software assurance adds additional rights. In addition to what those of you who probably know as new version rights, so as long as software assurance is running, you may upgrade to any new version. In addition to those rights, there are also critical usage rights. But when you have an enterprise agreement, when you all buy all your licenses through an enterprise agreement, you get those rights because you can't buy a license, as I said, without software assurance. There used to be lots of non-licensing benefits. There are still some non-licensing benefits that come with software assurance and therefore with enterprise agreement, like training vouchers, deployment vouchers, but those are shrinking. Microsoft is removing them gradually, one by one. Why? I don't know. We're not Microsoft. And talking about critical rights, SQL Server 2022, to be licensed per virtual machine now requires software assurance, and it didn't. So pay attention to software assurance, please. License lifetime. So through an enterprise agreement, which we'll discuss in more details a bit later, you may buy perpetual license with software assurance. What does it mean, perpetual license? It stays with you, it never expires. Through software assurance, you may not buy purely perpetual licenses like this. You may buy licenses with SA, which are essentially, if you are from the financial side of the world, perpetual licenses usually recognized as CapEx, and software assurance is usually recognized as OpEx. There are nuances. It's possible to recognize SA as CapEx, but that's kind of the default approach. What you need to know about software assurance is that it must be renewed at the same day when the previous term expires. Otherwise, you will have to repurchase the entire set of licenses again, and that also applies to an enterprise agreement. So, an enterprise agreement, which again we'll come to that, it has a term 3 years. So when you renew an enterprise agreement, what you do essentially is you renew software assurance on licenses, or you renew subscription licenses. If there's any gap between the previous term and the next term, what you can do is you may, if it's not a long gap, you may discuss with Microsoft that they'll give you a concession and backdate the enterprise agreement, so you'll have, they'll zero out that gap between your enterprise agreement terms. If it's longer, you would unfortunately have to repurchase the entire set of licenses again, buy another set of perpetual licenses, and restart your software assurance from scratch. So what's the main outtake of this slide is don't let software assurance expire. Make sure you manage your enterprise agreement renewals well. Subscription licenses are easier, although then again, I wouldn't imagine somebody dropping the SA and then resubscribing again. But if there's a gap in subscription licenses, you can just resubscribe. There's no penalty, nothing like it. Simple as that. It's a subscription. You pay for it, you have a license. You stop paying for it, you don't have a license. A little bit about the terms in an enterprise agreement. So one of the key terms of an enterprise agreement, and basically any Microsoft agreement, is an affiliate. What is an affiliate? An affiliate organization. An organization is considered to be an affiliate of another organization when either they are under common control, so they have an HQ and the company that owns them both, or one of them owns the other one by 50% plus. Ownership. And one of the, I would say, ambiguous definitions here is power to direct management and policies. So not even ownership of 50%, but power to direct management and policies is also considered to be affiliation between various legal entities. Why? It'll be around the end of this presentation. Well, I'll explain to you why you need to pay very, very close attention to how you structure affiliates in your enterprise agreement. Qualified device, it's a frequently asked question, what is a qualified device? So for now, just remember the definition, and I'll explain to you why it's important again in the course of this training. So a qualified device is any device that is capable of running Windows Professional locally in a physical or virtual operating system. So a Mac can be also a qualified device because you can virtualize Windows on a Mac, or used to access a virtual desktop infrastructure. So a Chromebook used to access a VDI is also a qualified device. There are exceptions. If there is a personal computer, a laptop that is used as a server, that is not counted as a qualified device. Line of business device. This is, by the way, quite a frequently asked question from, say, airports. If they have displays all over the airport, are those devices qualified? No, they're not, because they are considered industry devices because they serve a specific function. They play back ads or arrivals and departure schedule, something like it. Those devices may be excluded from the qualified device counts. And any unmanaged device, which is, to be honest, a little bit of an ambiguous term, so we won't go deep into that definition now. By the way, if you have any question, I'll just remind you, ask them in the chat, because I'm monitoring them. If there's anything interesting in the context of what I'm talking about right now, I will answer those questions in real time. There are also qualified users, another definition you need to know, you need to remember in relation to an enterprise agreement. So a qualified user is, and here is where many organizations make mistakes. When they sign an enterprise agreement based on users, on the user quantity, they only count employees. As you can see from this slide, it also includes, in addition to employees, consultants and other contingent staff. People who come to serve you, whom you hire not as employees, as temporary workers. Those are all qualified users. Users of all qualified devices are also counted as qualified users. Users accessing servers requiring an enterprise product CAL, which is basically every server, except for maybe Linuxes, they are also qualified users. So the count is more than just employees. And that's important when you plan your enterprise agreement. And if you, for example, if you've received an audit letter and you start thinking, are we compliant? Please remember that qualified users is more than just the number of users that are your employees, FTEs. Exceptions are users accessing enterprise service or services using external connectors, external users, or using kiosk user subscription license. So from a kiosk, basically, not employees. Here's a question for you, just to kind of keep you warm. So a company A and company B don't own each other, but they're both owned by a holding. Are they affiliated, company A and company B? So please type your questions and your answers in the chat, and I'll see whether we have any interesting questions here. Where comes contract employee and joint venture employee? Joint ventures are a bit complicated. So contractual employees are counted as qualified users. Joint venture employees, it depends on what type of joint venture there is and whether the other party also has an enterprise agreement. So yeah, but otherwise, I mean, if somebody requires access to the systems and they serve you, they work for you, even part-time, they usually considered qualified users, because then they're not external users. They're not kiosk users. They're not web users. They're actually users of your systems. So they're qualified users. Excluding contractors using bring your own device and own license, not possible in an EA. That's just against the nature of EA. There's a definition of a qualified user. Contractor is a qualified user, therefore you can't exclude them. And the only licenses they may bring on their own would be Visual Studio licenses. That's it. Right. So in regards to the question, so some people answer as no. The answer is actually yes. Yes, they are. They are considered affiliated through the holding indirectly. So please remember that. Okay. Hide message. Moving on. We have a lot to cover. Just a little bit of an introduction to Microsoft agreements. Those of you who have been to the introductory training that we did about 90 days ago, there was a section about agreements, but I need to repeat it today as well, quickly, to place the enterprise agreement, to show its place in the Microsoft's agreement ecosystem. So EA is obviously a current agreement. It still exists alongside with other agreements like MCA, which underpins CSP. There's no CSP agreement. There is an MCA agreement for CSP. MPSA is still a live agreement, and Open Value is still pretty much alive. There are retired agreements. What you need to take out from this slide is EA Enterprise Agreement is current. It's still offered. It's still renewed. It's still something that is important. Lifetime. There are evergreen agreements. Enterprise agreement is a bit of a mixture. So we place it always in the term basket. Why? Because contractually, enterprise agreement itself is an evergreen agreement, but you sign enrollments, which are 3-year enrollments under that agreement, and without an enrollment, enterprise agreement doesn't work. So we consider an enterprise agreement, from that point of view, a term agreement. What does it mean? It has a specific term. It has a start date. It has an end date. So it has a term. As opposed to, say, MPSA or CSP that don't have an end date. They're evergreen. You sign them, that's it. It lasts forever. Target organizations. Enterprise agreement and enterprise agreement subscription, EA and ES, they target large organizations. And if I show you the next slide, you'll understand me better. EA is for companies that start from 500 seats. And what is going on right now inside Microsoft, inside the CSP community, is Microsoft is reshuffling the incentives in a way when it's, at least for the Microsoft partners, but even for some customers, it actually makes more sense if a company or organization is below 2,400 seats, 2,400, they will probably be encouraged to move to CSP. So that threshold is still officially at 500 seats. We were expecting, a year ago, we were expecting it to move to 2,400. Then we had rumors about 1,000 seats. It's not happening. So you still may sign an enterprise agreement if you have 500 seats. Although I am expecting, that's what we're seeing, that you'll be encouraged to switch to CSP. Anyway, EA is for the large companies, as compared to all the other agreement offerings, current agreement offerings. It is a committed agreement, and this is very important to understand. Enterprise agreement is a committed agreement. Well, I will repeat that probably 10 times throughout this training again, that you may not sign an enterprise agreement without promising Microsoft that for at least one product, you're going to cover the entire company, the entire organization. That is what is called commitment. I promise, I commit to Microsoft that I'm going to cover, say, every single user with a specific user-based subscription license. Or in regards to servers, I promise Microsoft that I'm going to buy every Windows Server license only through this enterprise agreement. And commitment is a two-sided thing, and we'll get to that. So maybe a little bit of a breather. Daryl, may I please bring you back into studio, because I'd like to have a bit of water before I continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Alex, for bringing this back to me. So we've still got quite a bit to cover. We're going to go through Microsoft Enterprise Agreements. So we're going to overview the actual contractual structure of the Enterprise Agreement. So those of you that are not acquainted with Enterprise Agreements, we'll talk about the MBSA, we'll talk about the Enterprise Agreement, we'll talk about the enrollments and various addendums and additions like the customer price sheet that some of you might be acquainted with, some of you might not. We'll talk about the various enrollments, as we said, and then we'll touch on what's the difference between an enterprise agreement and an enterprise subscription enrollment. So one of the things that there's sometimes a bit of confusion about is, well, is a subscription enrollment completely different? And we'll talk about the differences, and what you'll find out is that actually enterprise agreement and an enterprise subscription are exactly the same, for one big difference. The licenses are term licenses under the subscription agreement, and they end after a certain period, and you have no perpetual licenses or no entitlements to future versions. Where on an enterprise agreement, of course, you have perpetual licenses, but you need to renew software assurance, something that today is becoming almost redundant in the world of 365, in the world of the cloud. But again, it's something that's still very prevalent out in the world, and it's worthwhile touching on. SCE, Server and Cloud Enrollment, and completely different agreement to the enterprise agreement. It's still out there, it's still prevalent, and there are customers that are actually still signing new cloud enrollments. So stick around for that. Everything to do with managing the EA lifecycle, documents and deep dives, and we'll also touch on renewal strategies and negotiations. So just stick around for that. It's going to get interesting.
Which will be Daryl's mostly part, by the way. So
yeah,
and he knows what he's talking about. Thanks, Daryl. So let's move on. Now, enterprise agreement. Highlights about the enterprise agreement, the basics of the enterprise agreement. It is underpinned by term enrollment that last for 3 years. That is the default length. They may be extended for another 3 years, but usually an enterprise agreement is 3 years. It may be signed for 5 years. Again, the default enterprise agreement, 99% of EAs that you'll see, and 99% of EAs that we see, maybe less, although, is 3-year agreements. As I already mentioned, it starts from 500 qualified users or devices. It's a committed agreement, so you must commit to something. And software assurance is compulsory. Software assurance is included with every license. There's no way to buy a license without a say. Enterprise agreement, in addition to standard Microsoft licensing terms, also gives other perks by itself. So it adds to normal licensing terms and gives you some stuff for free. For example, you may deploy up to 20 copies per licensed title in a training facility. It must be a dedicated training facility, ideally lockable, where you only conduct training on how to use the products. That's possible. Also, if you would like to evaluate products, you may easily deploy up to 10 copies per title for a 60-day evaluation, and there's no limit on which sort of products you're evaluating. You are evaluating them. So if you want to try a new product, you may do so, but you must comply with the 60-day rule. After 60 days, you must either buy it or remove it. Again, that's what enterprise agreement gives you in addition to just standard commercial licensing terms. When it comes to documents, as part of the services that we offer, we get into this conversation every time when we assess an enterprise agreement. We ask the client, please send us your enterprise agreement documents. And all we get is this green sheet that is on the screen, which is called a customer price sheet. Various regions it may be called differently, but basically it's CPS. That is not an enterprise agreement. So an enterprise agreement document stack is actually quite complicated. So you first sign a Microsoft Business and Services agreement, under which you sign the actual enterprise agreement, under which you sign enrollments, under which, so everything that is not covered by those documents is covered by Microsoft product terms, which you don't sign, you just accept it as a part of the agreement. All the terms that are in the Microsoft product terms, remember the website I showed you at the beginning, they all relate to every Microsoft agreement, but that's not the end. So in addition to the core documents, you also have forms that you sign. So these documents are MBSA, EA, and enrollments, they're static. Microsoft doesn't change them. All the changes are either, and your details are either in those supplemental forms and program signature forms, addendums, amendments, and also in CTMs. So if you're big enough, and if you negotiated special terms with Microsoft, they won't change the text of the agreement itself. They will provide you with a document that is called a CTM. I don't remember what it stands for. It's just called a CTM. It's basically an overriding amendment that will say stuff along the lines of, notwithstanding what's written in paragraph 5.1, the customer gets this, and that on such terms. So all the custom terms will be in the CTM. It is still immensely important that you find and keep them in a safe place, all these documents, because Microsoft changes them based on region, based on, the version of the enterprise agreement. So it's important to understand what exactly you committed to do, how exactly the enterprise agreement works for you. Even definitions of qualified user and qualified device that I've just shown you, they're current. Previous versions of enterprise agreements had different definitions. So it's important to understand the terms in your EA. So please keep all these forms. And in the end of all these things, it's still, it is a very important document. So please don't take me wrong. There's this CTM that I've just shown you, customer price sheet. Because customer price sheet is, and the reason why it's always kept by everyone, is the document that tells you how much you're supposed to pay for a certain product during the term of an enterprise agreement. Because one of the features of an enterprise agreement is a so-called price fix. If you order products at signing in the very beginning, the price is fixed for the entirety, for the length of the enterprise agreement, of the enrollment, if I'm absolutely precise. So CPS is from that point of view, is the most important document from the financial planning point of view. Let's get to the basic structure of enrollments, and then we'll cover every single enrollment in an additional module. Every enrollment has a default term of 3 years. It can be extended for 3 years. Enterprise agreement must have at least one enrollment. Without an enrollment, there is no enterprise agreement. It just doesn't work like this. Licenses are supplied through enrollments, not through the enterprise agreement. There is no enterprise agreement without commitment, and I'm repeating myself already. What is a commitment? It's promising Microsoft to buy certain products organization-wide. Disregarding, and that's again important, all the existing licenses you may have. So if you sign in an enterprise agreement for, as an example, if it's not in a Microsoft 365 based agreement, if you sign an enterprise agreement where as a committed product you add Office Professional Plus, then whatever other licenses of Office Professional Plus you may have, they don't count. You have to put them on the shelf because you promise Microsoft, I'm going to buy all the new licenses only through this EA. And this creates a financial risk. There is an oftenly made mistake when companies sign an enterprise agreement and then they order licenses through another channel, and making those licenses effectively useless until the EA expires. So please pay attention that commitment is a double-edged sword. Other names for a commitment could be that you can hear from various people, various trainers and sales people, LSPs, CSPs, enterprise products, enterprise commitment, platform commitment, standardization. That used to be a very, very popular term, standardization, somewhere around 2003, 2005. Everybody was talking about standardization. We're standardizing on licenses. We're standardizing on platform licenses. Which enrollments have which commitments? Which enrollments have which commitments? Enterprise enrollment, which is the one that usually you have to sign with every enterprise agreement. There are very few, very rare enterprise agreements without an enterprise enrollment. Try and sign one. It's possible legally, but almost impossible commercially. That is for client software and or services, the desktop part. Additional products, even server licenses, can be also added to an enterprise enrollment. If you want to have a committed enrollment for server products, and there are reasons why, we'll explain them. Why would you have a committed enrollment for server licenses? That works for servers. So you commit to buy, say, Windows Server for every server through that enrollment. And also, you may add any additional products into that enrollment. So they kind of work both ways. But there are two basic types. And here are the examples. So in enterprise enrollment, say, normally, those who are not yet in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, usually those enrollments are assigned to purchase Office Professional Plus, Windows 10, Windows 11 these days, Enterprise, it's important, and CAL bundles, either core CAL bundle or an Enterprise CAL bundle for every qualified device or qualified user in the organization. These days, in the Western Hemisphere, mostly, we see enterprise agreements signed, majority of them, if not all of them, for a Microsoft 365 services. Again, for every qualified user, because usually M365 is purchased per user, per qualified user. And in the Server and Cloud Enrollment, there are various types of server products you can commit to, like Core Infrastructure Server Suite, SQL Server, Visual Studio. And it used to be possible to sign a Server and Cloud Enrollment purely for Azure. Now it's not possible, but it still can be added to an SCE. The traditional products, pre-Microsoft 365 products, and we see this still in some European countries, like Germany, for example. Companies still use this, and if we go further to Asia, we see more examples of this. So enterprise agreements still are executed to purchase these products, the platform products. Sometimes, not sometimes, when you buy all these products for every qualified user or qualified device, you can combine them into so-called platform license. That gives you an additional discount. So platform bundle, that's a bundle. Enterprise enrollment could be of two types. So when we say enterprise agreement or enterprise agreement subscription, what we actually mean is there's an enterprise agreement with an enterprise enrollment or an enterprise subscription enrollment. But because everybody says EA and ES, I'll continue using that naming in our training today. The difference between them is, in an enterprise agreement, in an enterprise enrollment, you buy perpetual license with SA. In an ES, you buy subscription licenses. That is the main difference. Services can be bought for both. Services, online services, are always subscription. The enterprise agreement language in those types of agreements is exactly the same. It doesn't differ. What differs is the language in the enrollments, various definitions. For example, let me bring this early example now. True ups are only related to enterprise enrollments, non-subscription. And in the subscription enrollment, there's no true up. There's an annual order. Nuances, but they may be important. So when you hear, as I said, when you hear an enterprise subscription agreement, it just means there's an EA with an enterprise subscription enrollment. Enterprise agreement has spread payments. So if you order something at the first date, at signing, it's called at signing, when you sign the agreement, then that payment is spread by 3 years, and I'll demonstrate to you on a graph how it works. And if the quantity of products arises, there's a process that is called annual true-up, where you pay for the increase in products in the end of each year. In an enterprise subscription agreement, the licenses are subscription licenses, and you may ask me, where's software assurance? Software assurance is embedded with the subscription license. Essentially, I mean, let me be absolutely cynical. A subscription license is just a pure say. So that's what you're paying for. Therefore, there's no such thing as spread payment. There's a subscription fee. Effectively, an enterprise subscription enrollment is like combined three combined annual terms, annual subscriptions. So every year you place an annual order, and we'll cover all the mechanics of that in the training, further in the training. So please stay with us. Please bear with us. As I said, subscriptions for online services can be bought through both, and it doesn't matter whether that's a subscription enrollment or non-subscription enrollment. You still buy online services as subscriptions, because that's the only option, to buy online services as subscriptions. There are programmatic, it's called programmatic, predefined discount levels that you get even before you start negotiating, even before that. And they depend on the number of desktops, number of qualified desktops, by the way. So you can see the levels here. There's really no reason to spend too much time on this slide. You can take a screenshot. You can go back to this recording. So these are the levels. And when somebody says we have a level D agreement, that probably means that they have more than 15,000 seats. Government entities get level D, regardless of their size, as far as I remember. Yes, but I'm right. So the enterprise agreement level is agreed at signing, when you commit to a specific number. Subscriptions, because they may be trued down, they may be reduced. Subscriptions level and discount depends on an annual order. So if you, in an annual order, if you go below one of these defined thresholds, your programmatic discount changes. It gets smaller if you go below. We have an interesting question, which I would address it later, by the way. For example, when we purchased 1,000 Office Pro license with a say and continue to use, is it possible to buy a say for only 500 of our license when the EA contract renewal time, or we need to buy a say for all our inventory? No. So you need to commit to buy a say for the number of qualified desktops at the time when you renew. So it's not related to these numbers at all. It's a commitment. And because that's an enterprise product, you have to commit to buy it for the entire organization. So that the number, how much you need to renew in an EA, if you renew an enterprise agreement, depends on how many qualified devices you have when you renew. You may renew, Daryl, I'll bring you in. You may renew a bit differently.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add to that question. An enterprise agreement isn't the only contractual option open to you. So if you are in a situation where, as you described, you've got 1,000 Office Pro licenses with SA, and your EA is up for renewal, and you only need 500 under SA, and an enterprise agreement doesn't allow you to do that. That's just the way the contract is structured. There are options out there for you. And one of the options that's got a lot of flexibility that I personally really like, and I recommend for you to look into, and that's the CSP program. Now, we're not going to be talking about the CSP program today, but there are a number of articles on our website, and there are videos on the channel that talk about CSP. You can just Google it and you'll find a ton of information. But that, to my opinion, is the go-forward option that you should look into, and potentially that's going to meet your requirements.
We have a question from Nikki, which I don't understand. Nikki, if you could please elaborate what you mean by this, because to be honest, I just can't apply this question to anything I know about the enterprise agreement. So if you could just translate it into the terms of licensing, I would be happy to respond to it. We have another question which I'll answer now. What about RDS CALs? So RDS CAL is not a committed product. It's not an enterprise product. It's an additional product, and you buy them as you need. So there's no reason to commit for everyone to buy an RDS CAL unless you need it. But then again, you may not even include it in committed quantities. It's not a so-called enterprise product. What else do we have here? Will the transcript be made available for this training? What we plan to do is, because there's a certification exam that costs money. You can find everything about this exam on our YouTube channel. In the trainings playlist, there's all the information about how to access that exam. So for those who are subscribed to the exams mailing list, and don't worry, we don't spam there. It's purely about the exam. If you want to subscribe to our company's mailing list, it's a different mailing list. So for those of you who are on the exams mailing list, only those people, by the way, will get access to the free exam. I'll send you a link to PDFs with all these slides. For those of you who doesn't want to do that, and it's a bit of a hassle, I understand that. You may always come back to this recording on YouTube. I believe there's also a recording that will be saved on LinkedIn, and rewatch it. Fast forward to this slide, take a screenshot. Simple as that. So least price applies when I go from C to B. So okay, so the price actually the price list has all these levels. You won't be able to see the price list unless you're on LSP, but they see all these levels. It's a massive Excel spreadsheet with various conditions and combinations. It's huge. Some people spend months just trying to understand how it works, but they have all these levels. So if you go from C to B, then your price changes on a subscription agreement. Right. Let's move on. Let's not waste too much time. So there's a thing that is called initial order. So how much you have to buy initially, and what's important about the initial order as well is that it doesn't only apply to the initial order. These requirements don't only apply to the initial order, but also when there are licenses and services that allow reduction, truing down. There's no such term as truing down, but everybody calls it true down. Those licenses and services that allow reduction must respect, in certain cases, the initial minimal order. So we're talking about enterprise products and enterprise online services. There may be two types of enterprise agreements, and be careful when you sign them. Understand why you're doing that. Why you're doing that exactly, and ask as many questions as you want your LSP about why they structured your user profiles the way they structured them in the product select form. Because when there's a mixture of either just enterprise products like Office Professional Plus, Windows 11 Enterprise, and say Enterprise CAL, or there's a mix of enterprise products and enterprise online services like M365, then you must always be licensed throughout the term of the enterprise agreement for all qualified users or qualified devices accordingly per product, basically, the way the product is licensed. So you must commit for the entirety of the organization. Interestingly enough, and because that was brought to an EA later, EA was created in about 2003, yeah, roughly. Microsoft 365, Office 365 appeared much later. And Microsoft tried to squeeze it in the enterprise agreement because, well, that's the main cash cow. That's the main kind of sales vehicle for enterprise organizations when they deal with Microsoft. So when you sign an enterprise enrollment for enterprise services only, unless they somehow interestingly tweaked that, your commitment is actually 500 subscriptions, regardless of how many users you have. That's not a well-known fact. There's no qualified requirement for a enterprise online services only enterprise enrollment. Not a well-known fact. Here's an example of a mix that, well, these mixes still exist, especially when companies transition from the old licensing model to the cloud. And in this case, we have 1,500 qualified devices, and the commitment works the same in this way. 1,000 of those devices are licensed with enterprise products, i.e. Office Professional Plus. And 500 devices are licensed through their users with user subscription licenses to Microsoft 365 services. That's what I call a mix. So again, if I go back to the previous slide, when you have a mix like this is the left side of the slide, and you must always be, during the term, you must always have licenses for all the qualified devices and qualified users. Like this, for example, one of the examples. So here's a question for you to wake up. Can you buy online service subscriptions in a perpetual enterprise enrollment? Daryl, sorry, I'll bring you back to the studio because I need a breather again.
Well, that's fine. Okay, so please just post your answers. And if you want to just talk about subscriptions in a perpetual enterprise enrollment. So again, I just want to recap quickly because, again, there's sometimes confusion about subscription versus perpetual. One of the key items that I think that most of you are coming across these days is 365 licenses, Microsoft 365, Office 365, Dynamic 365, where the whole idea behind it is that they are subscription licenses. And even before 365, when organizations were looking to move from capital expense to an operational expense, from capex to opex, the way to move to opex, 100% opex, was to enroll in an enterprise agreement and only purchase subscription licenses. It's almost exactly the same as what's happening today as a default under 365. So if you're still getting a bit confused about perpetual and subscription, always go back to perpetual. Think about going to Home Depot, buying a box with a license, with a CD or a disc, and then coming back home and installing it. It was yours. You purchase it. It's like a book. You own the rights. You own the rights to use it. You don't own the IP rights, but you can't upgrade it. You can't do anything with it. You can't move it from PC to PC or from user to user, server or enterprise desktop. Where with a subscription, it's termed. So just remember that it's a term license. It's like you've got a Netflix subscription. You don't pay for Netflix. At the end of the month, you can't access the media. So it's exactly on the same level. Remember that, and perpetual and subscription will be very easy to manage going forward. Alex.
We have an interesting question that I'll hide you and I'll take it. Thank you. Example, the company made an EA long back in 2016, and they upgraded into Office 365. If they fail to follow minimal order, or do we need to amend the existing agreement, of new agreements that need to be signed? Well, so this is not for this training. We're going to have an additional training talking about Microsoft 365 and Office licensing, desktop licensing. But let me explain. So if you want to migrate your users during the term of an enterprise agreement, you commit for 3 years. It's very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but almost impossible. Or that's the caveat, to cancel an EA and sign a new one. Government entities have more flexibility there. Commercial entities, sorry, you committed for 3 years, you have to pay for what you committed. So when you want to move your users to Office 365, Microsoft 365, during a traditional enterprise agreement term, in that case, you buy add-on licenses. So you buy add-on licenses for the users you're gradually migrating to Office 365. If you decided to flip everything when your enterprise agreement expires, it's essentially a new EA or new enrollment. Well, we call it new EA. It's a new enrollment. It can still maintain the same enterprise agreement number, the identificator, but it's going to be a new enrollment number. And then you just switch to Office 365, and an entirely new commitment terms will apply to that new agreement. I hope I answered that question. If not, please elaborate, and I'll take it later. So moving on, coming up next, we're getting closer to the end, but not yet there. Please click like on this video if you haven't yet. I would really appreciate it, because, well, it helps us, it helps other people to find this information. And the next chapter is how Microsoft Enterprise Enrollment works, not subscription enrollment. So now I will just describe an enterprise enrollment and an enterprise subscription enrollment separately. Here's how spread payments work in an enterprise enrollment. So you place an initial order, and then you pay 1/3 of that price, total price of the product plus software assurance, in exactly 1/3 in the beginning of each year. Simple as that. That is one of the core features, financial features, of an enterprise agreement. That's how its economy works for the products that you commit to buy in the very beginning. So you place an order, not commit, you purchase in the very beginning. In addition to this, the price is fixed for all these products for 3 years. In addition to this, all these fixed prices will be on your customer price sheet. So Microsoft commits to you in writing to keep those prices for 3 years. So how this works in the dynamics, because it's never static. You may want to deploy new products, buy new products, remove products. You hire new people, you fire people. Companies are not static. So how does it work? So for enterprise products, for the products that you commit to buy for every user or every device, this is how it works for them. So when you sign an EA, you commit to a certain quantity. That quantity we're going to call initial commitment. Then it all changes. You deploy new products, you remove new products. So what you have to do when that quantity changes, in relation to only enterprise products, very importantly. So there are different kinds of products, only enterprise products, only committed products. You have an ability to true up in the end of the year based on the actual quantity used in active use by the end of the year. So whatever fluctuations you have, high water marks during the year, with enterprise products, they don't matter. All you have to do is, you're approaching the end of the year, you count how many licenses you're using right now, that you require right now, and you place a true-up order for that difference. Not forgetting that in the end of the third year, before renewal, you also have to true up whatever changed in the third year. As you may notice, because those are enterprise products, perpetual licenses plus SA, in an enterprise agreement, not subscription, there's no reduction. There's no reduction. Additional products, for example, RDS Cal, Visio, Project, they work completely differently. So they also have a price fixed at the initial order. And they also have this kind of like spread payments for the initial order. It's fine, it's all the same. But when you add them, you have to true up to the high watermark. So still, you don't have to place the order right now, straight away. You can wait until the true up, but you must true up to the high watermark. So if, say, you deployed, like in this example, you deployed additionally 400 in the second year, 400 copies of Visio, and then you uninstalled 300 because you didn't need them anymore, well, you still have to pay for 400. And Trust me, Microsoft will catch you if you do otherwise. So that is something that they enforce. That is something that they enforce. When you add new products, they don't have a price fix, but basically it all works almost exactly the same. With the only difference is that the price, well, not exactly the same. So firstly, you have to pay. What's going on right now on the slide? Sorry, I'm not sure. Please bear with me. Adding new products. Yeah, a little glitch with my, yeah, there you go. So you have to pay immediately at the current price and the entire amount. What happens then? At that date, the prices are fixed to that date. I never really tracked it, so I can't 100% be responsible for it, but that's how it works. And then any additional quantities you throw up like normal products, but not at the prices that are in your CPS, at the newly agreed prices. So if you want something to be price fixed, the usual advice you get from anyone in our industry. If you think you may consider buying Visio in the second year, at the beginning of the agreement, buy one license. You buy one license, you get fixed prices for the entirety of the enterprise agreement, to avoid this complexity, because this is a bit of a difficulty. Also, if you notice, there are no spread payments for products that are added later. There are no spread payments. You pay everything upfront, the entire sum. Service licenses work differently, and I'm jumping a bit up front. They work the same in an EA and in an enterprise subscription enrollments, because service licenses are subscription. So here's the dynamic: increases and decreases. When you need new licenses during a year, you reserve them. You create a reservation, and then you may start using them, because, well, the database that controls the number of licenses is in the cloud. Therefore, you need to tell that database, oh, I need more licenses. In the end of the year, you have to pay for that reservation backwards, prorated per month, plus the next year's true-up, basically, the next year's order for these licenses will be for the total number that you use by the end of the year. Then if you reduce, you may reduce them. Subscriptions, as long as you respect the reduction limits, they're the same as then in the initial order. As long as you respect that condition, you may reduce them. Your user count reduces, your decommissioned computers, your company shrinks. We're in a recession right now. Let's be open about that. Therefore, in that case, reductions are allowed, but you still need to make sure that you still are complying with the initial order requirements when you reduce your licenses. Additional service licenses have a big difference here, because there's no prorated fee. Additional services like Project and Visio, for example, again, subscription licenses. So here you have to pay full annual price. Sorry, no, you don't. Actually, sorry, no, I'm wrong. What's on the slide is right. I am wrong. So the difference is, sorry, let me roll back that. The difference with the enterprise products is that it works exactly the same, but you may reduce to zero because there's no commitment. Simple. If there's nothing for you to true up, do not just think that you don't have to do anything. It's a written commitment. If there's nothing, you must report a zero increase. It's not called a true up order. It's like a zero increase report. Work with your LSP through whom you sign the enterprise agreement. They'll help you. If there's truly nothing to true up, then you still need to submit a zero true up report. It's a requirement. Moving on. True up cost. So how much does it cost to pay for a license at the true up when you true the licenses up? So licenses that you buy in a true up for the license you pay for at a true up, there is no spread payment option again. So you have to pay the entire sum in one go, in one sum, and that sum includes full license, the cost of the full license. So when you buy a perpetual license with a say in an EA, it consists basically of the price of the perpetual license plus software assurance. So what you have to pay at the true-up, you pay full license price plus software assurance just for the remainder of the enterprise agreement. But that will be easy. You also have to pay a say for 6 months backwards. So this may be a bit difficult to understand. You can look your prices up in your CPS if you have it. But whether you have it or not, here's a better illustration. So when you true up at the first, by the end of the first year, you pay full license price plus 30 months of software assurance. In the end of the second year, full license price plus 18 months of software assurance. And in the end of the third year, full license price plus 6 months of a say. And that is why we recommend our clients, those who are on the subscription service with us, to, if you're approaching the end of the year and you may delay deployment of certain products until that annuity passes, deploy them later, after the true update, if you may, if there's such a possibility, because what you will essentially decrease the true up price by 12 months of software assurance, which may be a substantial number. So interesting dynamics, isn't it? So there's no prorated fees. This is how it works. Right. Here's a question for you. You initially bought and assigned 30 Visio licenses. Please pay attention. Visio licenses. In the second year, you installed 50 more copies, but then you removed 20 because they weren't used. And in the end of that, you ended up with 60 total copies. How many Visio licenses do you have to include in the second year true-up order? A bit of calculation. Please do your calculations. I'll keep this slide for a few more seconds on the screen, and then I'll pass the mic to Daryl again for a little breather. Because we are moving on in our training. I think we're very, very much on time, just a little bit slower than I planned, but still good enough. Daryl, please help me.
Yeah, absolutely. So just moving forward, we've got about another roughly 30 minutes to conclude the presentation. We're going to talk a bit about coming up, really just the enterprise subscription enrollment. We're almost done there. Server and cloud, SCE. And one of the topics that I hope that you stick around for is around EA negotiations and the difference between renewing an EA 3 years ago compared to renewing an enterprise agreement today. And the strategies and tactics have drastically changed. If previously, those of you that have been part of this negotiation cycle with Microsoft, you used to bring up various options of walk-away strategies, non-renewal of software assurance, like we were asked previously, maybe just adding in a few more licenses. That whole discussion has changed, and you really need to adapt to the new cloud economics and how Microsoft is internally compensated in order to leverage what you can and still come out on the winning side of the negotiations. Because ultimately, everything that we're going through today, understanding an enterprise agreement, the mechanisms of the enterprise agreement, difference between perpetual and subscription, ultimately brings you to one end result. And that is how to better or how to improve your overall spend with Microsoft. Meaning, how you save money for your company, How do you stop the bleeding? How do you stop overspending? How do you mitigate future costs? So without understanding everything that Alex is going through today, the basics, Microsoft has the upper hand at the end of the day. So it's all about leveling the playing field and coming out on the other side of the training with tools, knowledge, and know-how on how to better reduce and manage your overall spend with Microsoft.
Thank you,
Alex,
Daryl. So yeah, I'll bring back the previous slide because I think it caused confusions and I need to explain it. Visio is an additional product. And if you remember the dynamics of the additional product that I explained to you, you have to true up to the high water mark. So your true up order, so your quantity that you're truing up to is 80, obviously, but the order must be placed for 50 licenses. For that high water mark increase, the difference. That's what you need to put in the true up order. I mean, you can try and cheat, but, well, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, moving on to the enterprise subscription enrollment. Very few slides, roughly, what's it, like 3 slides. So I just need to explain to you the difference between EA and ES here. This is the dynamics of enterprise products in an enterprise subscription enrollment. If you remember, they are subscription products because that's an enterprise subscription enrollment. What I'm talking about is a subscription for, say, Office Professional Plus. How true-ups work here? There are no true-ups. That's an important thing. So there's no true-up in the subscription enrollment. There's an annual order. That's the term that they're going to use, an annual order. Because what it essentially is, an enterprise subscription enrollment is a set of 3 annual consecutive subscriptions. Therefore, what happens here is in the middle of the first year, you added 200 licenses and you started using them. There's not online services. Then what you have to do in the end of the year, you just basically order 2,000 for the second year. You don't have to pay for what you used in this year. You know, that additional quantity doesn't matter. You just basically resubscribe for the second year for the resulting quantity. Hope it makes sense. Then whatever happens again at the second year doesn't matter. You know, you drop to 1,800 again, and you order 1,800 for the third year. That's how it works. Very simple. With the only caveat, as usual, that any reductions must respect the initial order requirements. It's important. With additional products, it's a bit more brutal because you can't wait until the true-up or annual order date. If you increase the number of additional products, you must straight away pay for the difference, the whole annual price of a subscription to that product. And because I used to help Microsoft in certain areas, I remember them enforcing this. I've been witnessing that with clients. So if you have an enterprise subscription enrollment and you order subscriptions for additional products, not online services, please remember that the payment is now. You can't wait until the annuity date. I mean, if you haven't been doing this, it's only because you haven't been caught yet. I'm not joking. Online services work exactly like in an enterprise enrollment, non-subscription. Same logic. I don't have to repeat it. If you want to kind of rewatch this recording and roll back to what I was talking about online services, it's exactly the same. And here's a question for you, just to check whether you've been listening right now. What's the annual event obligation in an enterprise enrollment true-up or annual order? And I'll just move on. It's a simple question. I don't have to keep it on screen. So coming up next, 4 parts: Server and Cloud Enrollment, EA Lifecycle, Key Documents and Terms Deep Dive, and a Renewal Strategy and Negotiations. And by this time, if you still like what's going on right now, please click like if you haven't done it yet, because, well, it helps. So thank you. And excuse me for asking, but it really helps. Yes, so the answer to that question is, by the way, true up, because that's enterprise enrollment. And a subscription enrollment is called an annual order. So, Server and Cloud Enrollment. Let's talk about server commitments. It's a term enrollment, again, 3 years. The default term is always 3 years. Perpetual and subscription license. So there's no such thing as a subscription SCE. SCE is just one SCE, and you may choose which license you want to purchase through an SCE. Subscription licenses or perpetual plus SA, up to you. You can try to, and I specifically put it in square brackets, sign an EA with an SCE only. And not to say I haven't seen it, but there'll be a lot of resistance from Microsoft to do so from the business desk. Legally, it's possible. The way the enterprise agreement language is stipulated, it's possible, but it's difficult to imagine why. Because the whole idea of an enterprise agreement is to actually cover your desktops and users, and SCE is seen as an additional enrollment. Again, you can try. Maybe you'll succeed. And push back on that's what your agreement says if you want to. You can add any additional products. So funny enough, you can actually add Office, unless it's an enterprise product. You can't add enterprise products. But any other products like Visio, Project, you can add to an SCE as opposed to an enterprise enrollment. Where this often works, by the way, that's a very good example. So for example, when you sign a services-only enterprise enrollment, it will 99% be a subscription enrollment. There's no reason to sign an enterprise enrollment for purely subscription user licenses. And then you, for example, want to add the perpetual license for Project, and you have an SCE. So that's where you put your perpetual license for Project to the SCE. That's where you add them. That's how you buy them. You may actually, you don't have to buy them through an enterprise agreement. You may buy them through an MPSA, through CSP. Yeah, if I don't remember if CSP has perpetual Project, but anyway, you can buy them through different channels because they're not committed licenses. But if you want to buy them through an EA, this is where you add those additional products. You may add Azure to an SCE. As I said, it used to be possible to sign an Azure-only SCE, and that is how Azure was sold to enterprise through enterprise agreements before. I think for about 2 or 3 years, it's not available anymore, so it's only like an additional option. And then still Microsoft discourages it right now. They make you sign this Azure commitment agreements, different dynamics, different mechanics, completely different entry barriers. Because they're based on core commitments. There's a slide about it, which we'll get to very soon. And different discounts. The discounts doesn't work the same as an enterprise agreement, as an enterprise enrollment, because there are no desktops. We're not counting desktops here. Therefore, discounts work differently. Programmatic discounts work differently. Well, there are no programmatic discounts, strictly speaking, unless. We'll get to that. Unless. So you have a choice of components. You don't have to choose every component here. So obvious choices, normally, like usual choices, are core infrastructure suite. So you may not commit to just Windows Server. You have to commit to core infrastructure suite, which is a bundle consisting of Windows Server and System Center. Application platform, which is, well, SQL Server. Other components are optional on top of SQL Server if you want to be stored on SharePoint, but SQL must be. If you choose an application platform as your SCE component, you must commit to Microsoft. You must promise Microsoft, I'm going to license all the running SQL servers, whatever license, previous license I have, doesn't matter. I'm going to relicense them all through the SCE. And for that, you get all your discounts and other perks. And there's also development platform. So by all means, you may just sign an SCE for Visual Studio Enterprise. Only Enterprise, though. And SDM platforms is an option, but Visual Studio Standard, for example, is not a part of a platform commitment through an SCE. Azure is an additional component. So commitment here is, as I just explained on the example of SQL Server, is for the entirety of the installed base. Whether that's already licensed or not, it doesn't matter. Again, installed base, So if you have licenses lying around which you're not using, you don't need to count them. You need to count the active usage, the active installation, what's factual. So there are minimums, entry minimums. So for core infrastructure suite, it's 400 cores, single core licenses. Pay attention to this, single core licenses. I'm not talking about core packs, not 2 packs, not 8 packs, not 16 packs, single licenses of either edition, data center, or standard. For SQL Server, here are the minimums. I don't really want to read them from the slide. You can see them yourselves. You can take a screenshot, and for BStock as well. So these are the minimums for the application platform: SQL, BStock, SharePoint. Developer platform, again, remind you, Visual Studio Enterprise with MSDN or GitHub Enterprise or MSDN platforms, 20 licenses. Any combination, any mix of this. Minimums may be met with either just 100% perpetual license with software assurance, or 100% subscription licenses, or a mix. So mix and match, however you want. Subscription units have a very interesting dynamics. So some of you may not be happy with it, but normally it works. In practice, it works. So you may add subscription licenses at any time. You may pay for them at anniversary, prorated, like for services and an enterprise enrollment. You may reduce them at an anniversary, but there's a big but. The minimum commitment to pay for subscription license is 12 months. So it's not like you can have them for 4 months and then drop, unless probably it's the end of the 3rd year. Otherwise, the minimum commitment is 12 months. Benefits. There's a commitment discount. So when you commit to cover all your installed base with through an SCE, you get the discount on perpetual license plus software assurance, and as well as subscriptions, 15%. Pure software assurance renewal, because you can renew into an SCE from the previous term. There's a 5% discount on SA. And that is one of the main reasons why you may consider to sign an SCE. It won't work for everybody. Sometimes you may be in a situation when you already have the licenses, the way you work, the way your infrastructure works and structured. You don't need that. Also, if you're switching from previous terms Windows Server that had software assurance, you can actually step it up to Core Infrastructure Service Suite. The same applies to System Center. You can step it up to the full Core Infrastructure Service Suite. Price levels. So here's the thing: if you don't have an Enterprise Enrollment or MBSA or Select Plus, then the prices you get through the SCE are always level A. But normally, as I just explained, you would have a full enterprise agreement with an enterprise enrollment. And in that case, the current price from that enterprise enrollment will apply to your SCE as well. So if you have an enterprise enrollment of level D, then your SCE products will also be priced at the level D. Hope it makes sense. Here's a question for you. If you remember this, if you've been listening carefully, can you sign an SCE for Visual Studio only? And what's coming up next is this Enterprise Agreement Lifecycle. Daryl, please bear with me. My mouse is misbehaving. What naughty mouse.
Okay. So Alex, let's just move forward. Let's just start with the EA lifecycle and just move forward from there. If you want to, I'll start off and you can jump in when you want to. So yeah, just jump forward. So basically, when you're looking at the enterprise agreement, there are 2 variations of ending an agreement. So we've got the standard enterprise agreement, perpetual plus software assurance, and then we've got the enterprise agreement, as we spoke about, the subscription version. So with the perpetual plus software assurance, it's actually pretty simple, and I think most of you that are on an enterprise agreement are already into, 3rd, 4th cycle of software assurance. The agreement ends, you started off with a license, and with software assurance, you might have trued up during the 3-year period. So you just renew software assurance. option 1. Option 2, you can extend for 3 years, but don't forget that when you extend for 3 years, you actually don't receive the same discounts. So you can renew, but it's going to be list price without any discount. So the extension isn't really an extension. You need to renegotiate. And if you want to just renew the software assurance and just move it to another agreement, you can do that. You can move it to an alternative to an enterprise agreement that we spoke about briefly beforehand. And what you can also do is just stay with your perpetual licenses with the current version of your license and stop using software assurance benefits. But as we know today, it's almost impossible. Most organizations are on Office 3 or on Microsoft 365, non-perpetual subscription-based licenses in any case. And software assurance you can't do without software assurance because it's so much more than just losing service credits and additional benefits. It's all about virtualization and other special rights. So it's almost a non-existent option. In extreme circumstances, we do see that, we do recommend that, but again, that's not standard practice. When you're under a subscription license, if you want to go back just 1 second, Alex, so I can just finalize this slide. On a subscription enrollment, it's completely different. As again, it's subscription, you don't owe anything, you don't own anything. So if you don't renew your enrollment, you can't continue to use any other licenses. So it's either subscription, a new enterprise agreement subscription renewal, or you can move over to a CSP. That's actually not a bad idea in today's environment and with the flexibility CSP brings to the table. And of course, you can buy out, something that I haven't seen in many, many years. Buyout basically is that you've got a set, let's call it a set price to buy perpetual rights to all your licenses, and then you can continue software assurance immediately afterwards, or you can exit the agreement and stay with perpetual rights. Again, in the world of Microsoft 365, it's not even an option today, to my opinion. Alex, let's move forward. So basically, the renewal process is you sign a new enrollment. As I said, the price list is the most updated price list as of date. New product list, new product terms, and the framework again might be new, might be able to. Well, you'll still stay under your MBSA, but you most probably need to go through, review, and approve the entire legal framework of your agreement. Now, the extension, again, something that I haven't seen in many years, I don't even recommend it these days, is that potentially you can extend for 3 years, but as we said, prices are completely reset, and all your concessions are basically expired. So if you've got special terms and conditions, amendments, and various perks, they're gone, and they don't automatically renew. It's starting from scratch. So again, as Alex put here, weigh your options. You can ask an expert, but you don't need an expert for this. Just don't do that. Then I'm giving you the bottom line. Not recommended. Take another option.
Thank you, Daryl. Yeah, I'll take it from here. So, and as Daryl said, you can renew to a different agreement. Absolutely rightfully. So you can renew software assurance in an agreement like an MPSA agreement if you qualify for an MPSA, or on a open value agreement, or any agreement that still works with software assurance. CSP doesn't have software assurance. It's importantly, CSP doesn't work with SA. In CSP, you have either pure perpetual licenses or subscription licenses. These are the only options that you can get in CSP. But you may decide to, I'm not going to renew SA. If I want new versions, I will resubscribe through CSP. By all means, consider all the cons and pros. So Microsoft is reducing the differences between volume licenses like EA and CSP, but CSP is still a bit more restrictive. So some things that you may be used to through an enterprise agreement may not apply to the same products, the same licenses, but through CSP. We have a video on the channel that discusses, a couple of videos actually, that discuss the difference between the two types of agreements. So that sort of renewal needs to be considered. SA to MPSA, exactly the same perks. Not a problem. So when you buy perpetual licenses out, there are a few things to remember if you want to. I mean, we used to have lots of buyouts before, but as Daryl said, these days it's all about M365. Some companies rarely buy licenses out, but maybe you want to. Maybe you want to if you want to in the end of the subscription term, if you have a subscription for licenses. So if those licenses are on Enterprise Subscription Enrollment, you must buy out all the enterprise agreement products. You may not just buy out a part of them. You must buy the entirety. If you have 1,500 licenses on subscription, you must buy them all out. In regards to additional products, there's no such limit. You just buy them out. Whatever you want. Same. There's no limitation in the Server Cloud Enrollment, and you can even look up the price because that's going to be a year 3 true-up price, the price of buying out subscription license in an SC if you want to. If you want the option. Again, very rarely used these days. 10, 12 years ago, I saw that often. You can also, in the end of the subscription term, instead of buying licenses out, if you want to continue them, so you must either renew software assurance, or because that was a subscription, sorry, Anya, no, sorry. Yeah. Or you must stop using the SA benefits. So about stopping the SA benefits, here are a few examples. If software assurance expires and you still have perpetual licenses, you have to do these things. Take the licenses off cloud, because licenses can be taken to the cloud, brought to the cloud only when you have active software assurance. It's stopped. You still have the license. You may not use it in the cloud. So you must make sure you renew or you take it off the cloud. You must break virtual clusters, because license mobility in server farms is a perk that you get through software assurance only. Now, what's not on this slide, so SQL Server 2022, I'm not talking about the previous licenses, the old rules still apply, but SQL Server 2022, you won't be able to license it per virtual machine if your SA expires. So if you already have it licensed per virtual machine, your SA expires, what do you do? Good question, isn't it? So watch your software assurance, and also disable remote access to virtual office applications. The one that really like a huge punch in the gut, you have to downgrade Windows Enterprise to Enterprise LTLSC. You may not continue using Windows Enterprise if software assurance on Windows Enterprise expires. That is a bummer. And if you're a massive organization with like 11,000 seats, well, try and do that. So watch your software assurance. Plan your SA renewals carefully, or suffer. So coming up next, only 2 parts left in this training. So we have already been talking for almost 800 minutes. So hopefully we'll cover this in the next 20 minutes. And as we promised, to stop this training at 5 o'clock London time. So key terms and conditions. I'm bringing back the slide you've already seen, the Enterprise Agreement document stack, to explain to you where you may find interesting stuff and why I encourage you to actually find those PDFs today and read them yourselves, please. So starting with the MBSA, the umbrella agreement. It defines various definitions like affiliate. So definitions, by the way, are spread across all the enrollments. So affiliate is found in MBSA. If you don't find a specific definition, look them up in the enrollments and in the agreement itself. So the legal framework that it defines, it's quite big, but the key points here are, so your generic rights, confidentiality. So all the confidentiality agreements with Microsoft will be in the MBSA. Privacy, warranties, and most importantly, audit terms. You sign MBSA, you give Microsoft the right to audit you. If you don't sign it, you don't get the licenses. So every time you sign an agreement with Microsoft, they always put their audit conditions, even in CSP, in the Microsoft Customer Agreement. Enterprise Agreement itself has definitions like enrolled affiliate, enterprise, and et cetera. It defines downgrade rights. It defines new version rights, the right that you get through software assurance. And it also defines such important things like the rules for mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures. So any selling and buying other businesses. and also rules for license transfers. Enrollments have definitions like enterprise product, additional product, qualified device. That's where you find the definition of qualified device or qualified user, and they define things that are relevant to the enrollment itself. So minimal order, all of the LSP, adding license, draw up terms, annual order, and whatnot. It also defines affiliates again, and and all the rules with sorry, not defines. That's where you kind of choose your affiliate. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say here. And in an enrollment, you put your LSP in the signature forms and details forms, and all the contacts of all the parties that participate in an enrollment. So you, LSP, Microsoft, and whatnot. Audit. A little bit about what's written in the MBSA. So Microsoft says that they'll appoint an independent auditor. Normally, with a few exceptions depending on the region, normally those are PwC, KPMG, EY, or Deloitte. So the big four. When? So there are two calendar commitments in relation to the audit, and we have additional live recordings here on this channel where we talk about audits, and we're going to have another session soon where we'll walk you through how to navigate a Microsoft audit with minimal consequences. So you have 30 days to respond to the notice. They usually try and enforce 10 days. The actual commitment that you signed for is 30 days. Otherwise, there are no other constraints on the length of the audit and any step of it. They will try to impose on you specific project plan. Remember, that's not a legal commitment. And 30 days to order missing licenses if you found non-compliant. The penalty is, there are a few penalties. So the first penalty is in regards to licenses, is you have to buy 125% of the applicable level list price. It used to be, by the way, much worse. It used to be level A. Whether you're level D or whatever other discount you have, you had to actually take level A, multiply by 1.25, and that's the price that you would pay. Now they take discounts into account, which makes it a bit better, but nobody likes audits and paying penalties. And then if non-compliance is 5 or more % on aggregate, it used to be per product, then you will be required to reimburse Microsoft's fees that they pay to the auditor. It's roughly, actually, I don't know how much that is. I won't put it in the public recording because I don't know. So applicable rights are also defined in, as far as I remember, in the enterprise agreement itself. It's quite a complicated slide. So again, take a screenshot. But what's important is that if you have a question of, okay, I've upgraded the product, what rights do I have to look up? Or I haven't upgraded it, I just have a right to upgrade, I'm still keeping the old license. That is where it's all explained. So again, take a screenshot of this slide, but find your PDFs of your agreement and read it there, because that may give you additional flexibility. The only thing you need to remember is when you upgrade the product, when you upgrade it to a new version, you have to accept the new version's product terms. If you don't upgrade it, you may still use the old, apply the old terms. SQL 2022 is a good example. Very good example. Imagine you bought SQL 2019 and an enterprise agreement with software assurance. You have a right to upgrade to SQL Server 2022. If you don't upgrade, you don't have to have a say to license SQL Server per core. If you upgrade to version 2022, you have to accept the new terms and conditions through which you have to have software assurance to license SQL Server per core. So pay attention to that. You upgrade, you have to upgrade your applicable, agree to the upgraded applicable product terms. Mergers, acquisitions. So it's actually not rocket science, but one thing to remember is there's an interesting threshold there, which I only learned recently when we helped the client to go through an acquisition. Apparently, in the default language of the enterprise agreement, unless it's changed by any sort of like an amendment to CTM, if the number of licenses required after any organizational changes changes by more than 10%, then Microsoft will work with you. The enrolled affiliate is the one that signed the agreement, so it will work with the entity that signed the agreement to accommodate those changes, because otherwise, and we'll get to affiliate options very soon, in 2 slides after this. Otherwise, you may end up in the situation when a company of 5,000 people buys a company of another 5,000 people, and suddenly they're required to purchase all the licenses for the new 5,000 people through the enterprise agreement. So Microsoft has this caveat, which actually works both ways, which works for you as well. So you may go back to Microsoft and say, you know what, we don't want to do that now. We may consider it to do this in the next term, but let's kind of, referring to this particular point, let's think about how we can accommodate these changes, at least, whilst our current enterprise agreement is still running. We don't want such sudden, expenses. That's the way to avoid expenses. License transfers. So licenses may be transferred, even enterprise agreement licenses, due to a merger or a divestiture, only for fully paid perpetual licenses, so no subscription transfers, anything like it. And you may not transfer software assurance. So only perpetual part of the license may be transferred from an entity to an entity. There is an outlined process, which we will not cover today. There's a special form. You have to reach out to Microsoft. They must give you that form. You must fill it in. You must make sure that the process is fully executed. And then the important bit is when you transfer licenses in any direction, the original transaction, the purchase transaction, stays on the Microsoft license statement in the database of the company that made the original transaction. Transfers are never recorded in Microsoft databases. That's why it's immensely important to keep these documents when you transfer licenses. And then congratulations to your license managers, your software asset management people, because they will have, each time they assess how many licenses you have, they may not rely solely on the Microsoft license statement. They must first calculate the license on the MLS and then apply all the transfers that you may have made, throughout the years, which is trust me, there's a lot of fun for companies that are active in non-organic growth and selling and buying entities. LSP relationship is also defined. So normally, how it used to work, one enrollment, one LSP. Change of LSP was possible, but extremely painful. And try and change an LSP on an enrollment. Microsoft will be resisting that, because that's against the nature of the EA. But breaking news: Microsoft just announced that they decided to go directly to to some of the customers, completely circumventing the LSPs. So it seems like LSPs are being squeezed out. We'll see. We'll see how it works. LSPs play a significant role in the entire Microsoft licensing ecosystem. And although, if you compare optimization services between us and LSPs also provide optimization services, and they provide it normally for free. They don't go the entire journey. They're not commercially interested in really optimizing the license, but they may provide that service. So there was an additional layer of kind of helping end clients to optimize the licensing estate. We will obviously, because we don't sell licenses, we don't depend on Microsoft, we'll go deeper. But then you had that option. Now you don't. If you work directly with Microsoft, who's going to optimize your licenses? Affiliate options. So each enrollment has such a page, like here. And it's very important to, when you sign an enterprise agreement, it's very important to tick the right boxes here, and because most of the enterprise agreement clients just tick the box, like all affiliates, whatever. What's it? Wait a second. Yeah, enrolled affiliate and all affiliates. That's what the majority does. And then you have these questions, like when you buy a new company, How do you accommodate them? Because they become your new affiliate. How do you accommodate them into your kind of like group of companies enterprise agreement? It's a big question. So we normally recommend whitelisting affiliates strictly. Yeah. In regards to managing an enterprise agreement, there's one thing I want to warn you, because I mentioned it twice, but some of you may have just joined this live, some of you may skip through the recording, and that's important because I've seen organizations losing up to, the worst I had like $500,000 US dollars. If you commit to this is an example. There is an organization, government entity, that committed to an enterprise agreement with a Server and Cloud Enrollment, therefore promising Microsoft to license all the Windows servers with core infrastructure suite licenses bought through the enterprise agreement. One of the divisions, and you know how government entities work, they don't really talk to each other in many cases, they're very decentralized, decided to deploy new servers. And instead of buying those licenses through that enterprise agreement, they bought them through their own MPSA agreement. And there we go, $500,000 US dollars in the equivalent of the local currency, but it doesn't matter. $500,000 US dollars was wasted because Microsoft won't stop that transaction. You have the licenses. The licenses are legitimate, absolutely legitimate, but you may not use them. You have to actually go back to Microsoft and buy those licenses again through the enterprise agreement. So there may be some options when you can ask for a refund, and it depends. So how you work with your reseller. But in that particular case, that was only found out during an annual event, an annual true-up, and that was already too late. So all the grace periods have passed. So if you committed, only purchase of the enrollment. Please pay attention to that. Centralize your purchases. Don't decentralize purchases of licenses, ever. Right. Here's a question, if you've been paying attention. For how long an enrollment can be extended? For 3 years, 3 years, so 1 year, or extension not possible? Please memorize this question. So option A, 3 years. Option B, 3 years or 1 year, and extension not possible. And we are getting into the enterprise agreement renewal strategy, where we'll probably talk together with Daryl, one after another. So this is the next part. Enterprise agreement renewal strategy, and I'll start with the promise that your bill of material will grow.
Okay. So first of all, thank you, Alex, and for those of you that have stayed around for 1 hour and 50 minutes or almost. So first of all, thank you. Hope it's been time well spent. So let's just start off with bill of.
5 slides to go. Just want to say we only have 5 slides
thank
to go.
you. 5 slides, and I'll stick to the time schedule. So one of the things that always surprises organizations is how the hell, sorry for my French, how the hell does the bill of materials increase? We are downsizing, we optimizing, but everything's increasing. Well, the big surprise is that Microsoft isn't surprised. Microsoft has been working for 3 years in order to set you up exactly for the process of growth. Now, Microsoft has an internal target of a minimum of 10 to 15% growth. It used to always come from an enterprise agreement because that was the only offering for enterprise organizations. But we all know today that is not the most important component to Microsoft. They want Azure. They want, of course, 365, Dynamics, anything that goes under 365 that's non-perpetual. Another reason, just 1 second, Alex, another reason that your bill of materials is growing is that, sorry, it's your fault. I don't know anybody specific on the call, but it's the organizational fault that you are not optimizing. The amount of of waste within an organization, regardless if it's Microsoft, Oracle, IBM, ServiceNow, Salesforce, you name it, is an average of 20 to 30% software licensing waste. So this can be cut, I'll say easily, but it just needs some rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands dirty, and for somebody actually to get the work done. So keep this in mind. This is under your control. And I've heard all the excuses. You need to just get the work done. Alex, let's move on.
I just wanted to say that Microsoft normally they have a target, sales target, to increase your EA by 10 to 15%, and it's relatively easy to negotiate down to that increase. Anything below that hurts them, and therefore it will be more difficult. So there are a few reasons for and let me put them all on screen. Actually, why don't we? A few reasons why this budget is shocking, and one of them is should be obvious, but it's not for some reason for procurement people. It's Microsoft increases prices, and you are sitting on a fixed price. So here's the question: do you imagine that Microsoft will not increase prices on their price list in the 3 years during the term of your EA? They do it multiple times. And what happens is that you approach the renewal and the prices have changed already multiple times. They've increased the prices on the server licenses. They've increased the prices on, like SQL, for example, right now. It's grown significantly. Like Microsoft 365 subscriptions, which they changed in March this year, and you have to bear all these increases for 3 years. So that's the first reason. Product evolution, rebundling the products. So if you, for example, used to buy certain products as components, which especially applies for Microsoft 365, now Microsoft changes the bundles in a way when it's not as easy to pick and choose. You're almost forced towards bundles, and that also increases the price. And evolution from on-premises Office to Microsoft 365 is a good example too. So lack of strategic approach to the cloud. Lift and shift doesn't work. Cloud native applications, lift and shift doesn't work. And that we see that you're supposed to move your costs from on-premise to the cloud. And what happens is on-premise grows and cloud grows at the same time. There's a big cloud paradox. I didn't bring that. There's a publicly available graph called Cloud Paradox, which shows that the cloud costs are rising, on-premises costs are not falling at all. Like, not at all, they're static. An interesting, a painful thing about which Dale can probably relate to a lot because he's responsible for negotiations in our team, is removal of adopted discounts. So you may be given a discount during the previous terms, like, you're switching to this product, fine, 40% discount. You won't retain that discount in the next 3 years. You may be given a discount, like, to promise Microsoft, we're going to cover everything with SQL Server Enterprise at the price of SQL Standard. Guess what? Just for the previous 3 years. New three-year term comes, and you have to pay for full SQL Server Enterprise, which is what? A quadruple price of SQL Server Standard. Yeah, congratulations. The switch to unified support, that is, well, it's a thing that's happened. Microsoft changed Premier support to enterprise support, and then negotiations are harder to, discounts are harder to negotiate now. So it used to be 25, 15%. If you get 5% right now, unless you have a professional help, well, you're in a good place. Daryl, do you want to change anything to this? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please. Yes, Alex, thanks. I just want to add on a few points. So unified support, just so everybody's aware that the cost of unified support is linked to your overall enterprise agreement and Azure spend. So Premier is dead for many years now, but a lot of procurement managers and CIOs out there are not up to date with the change in the linkage between support and your overall licensing cost. So take that into mind. It can be negotiated, again, depending on your size and strategic importance to Microsoft. Discounts. So discounts and prices. So Alex mentioned price increases. I want to talk about below the watermark price increases that you don't even know that are increasing. And you have difficulty explaining to your organization. And that's everything to do with Microsoft 365 bundling, the way the products are bundled, new security features that you're bringing in, various components that you're using, the changes to Dynamic 365 licensing, has completely changed over the last 3 to 4 years. You don't even feel it, but it's changing. It's subtly changing below the watermark. You need to be aware of that. The reason being is that if you are aware and you know where the changes have taken place, this is leverage. This is knowledge that you can bring to the negotiation table. And then you can have a hard negotiation. Sorry. Negotiations are not single folded enterprise agreement negotiations. Your approach needs to be holistic, needs to be completely different. You need to be aggressive. You need to be creative. You need to look at your entire Microsoft spend, not just your enterprise agreement. If we move forward, I want to just talk about some additional strategies that you can actually do, that you can actually implement. So first of all, I spoke about it, and I'm very, very loud about dead weight, about over usage, under optimization. This is up to you. You need to just get the work done. Everything to do with 365 personas. Yes, managing multiple personas is difficult. It's a mess. Nobody likes it, but it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings. You put one person just to manage 365, I can promise you there's going to be an ROI of 1 to 10. Easy. I'm not even talking about getting to cloud native and lift and shift and re-architecturing and waste of money of just lift and shift that's also disappearing. Again, that's just getting the work done. And yes, benchmark, get fair value benchmarking information about your marketplace. It is really, really, really important. Now, when you talk about Microsoft, negotiating with Microsoft, don't forget, it's not just you negotiating the enterprise agreement. You've got potentially, again, depending on everybody on the call, your size of organization, you've got your unified support. You might even have an SP. You might even be paying additional fees for another provider that you're paying SPLA licenses for. You've got your Azure spend, and that's huge these days. You might even have a smaller CSP as part of your overall motion. So look at Microsoft as one spend. Microsoft doesn't like it, but that's your responsibility to your organization to negotiate an agreement that brings an holistic view to Microsoft. Let's move forward 1 second, Alex, because we really need to summarize. So a T minus 18 plan. I know this is a bit long to prepare for an agreement. So this is an ideal world. In an unideal world, we're basically looking at T minus 12 or even T minus 8 months of preparing. But the first agenda is to know what you have, know where you're going, optimize, gather market information, market knowledge, market best practices, look at Microsoft within your organization from an holistic view, have a really strong team of negotiators, of technical people, and then you can actually level the playing field and you can be prepared for the next negotiation. So this is a nice summary of our 6-phase approach, our methodology. Foundation, understand your environment, as I said. Strategy, future demand and requirements. Optimization. There is bigger savings to be made on optimization than on any single one or any single approach of negotiations. And if you don't get that, then you're throwing away money and you're doing a bad job for your organization. And I'm blunt. Okay, I've been doing this for years, so I don't mind being blunt, and I voice my opinion. Negotiation planning. Plan. Microsoft plans. You should plan as well. Negotiate. Best practices in negotiation. Get to know Microsoft. Get to know them, what motivates them, how they compensated, who's on their team. And then when you execute the contract, don't just file the contract into a drawer. But there's so many good things in the contract that are overlooked, benefits that there is anywhere between tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars of contract benefits that are just they're not executed, they're not communicated within your organization. So keep this in mind. It's a 6-stage approach, and it works, and it brings savings. Thank you, Alex.
All you need is time and effort, right? As usual, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you, everyone. So please tune for the upcoming streams on Some Expert TV. There will be some events that we won't post on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is more for big events like this, or what I hate to call webinars, but essentially webinars like business presentations. Next week, for example, I'm bringing back personally. I hope Daryl will join, because why I'm saying I, not we, is because Some Expert was initially was my personal project before we revived the brand and made it commercial. So what I want to bring back next week is next Wednesday is an Ask Me Anything Q&A session. Whether there's going to be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, how many questions we're going to have in that session. We're going to answer. So if you want to send me questions or send us questions, especially if they're negotiation related, please use either the LinkedIn communication channels or go to someexpert.com and send us a question through any of the forms. There's a form on every page, basically. So it doesn't matter which form you use. Please let us know that that's a question for the Q&A session to cover for. Let us prepare, because if you ask us a question during the live show that we are not prepared to answer, we'll have to take it as a homework and answer it later. It's much better if we can prepare and answer it on the actual live. So please come there. These training series will be continued. I only saw one request, so I'll do a poll, because what SQL Server really mixed this whole thing up, unfortunately or fortunately. So we planned to have the next live about CSP and switching to CSP, but I'll publish a poll. We'll have to choose whether it's going to be a SQL Server training or a CSP training. And by the way, next week in the Q&A session, happy to take the SQL Server questions as well, because I think they're very the changes are quite. I would say, I don't like them, to be honest, if you ask me. But pay as you go, SQL pay as you go on premises. First time Microsoft is offering pay as you go per hour billing for a piece of software on premises. That's an interesting thing. Anyway, so thanks very much. Thanks, Daryl. See you here and everywhere else where you can find us. Just Google Some Expert. And I hope this was informative. I hope you learned something new today. And we'll see you in the next sessions. So, yeah, take care. Cheers.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Software licensing is a minefield. It's confusing, time-consuming, and often overpriced. Get it right, and it can be your greatest asset. Get it slightly wrong, and you risk being non-compliant and possibly paying for software you don't need. And the cloud, it only made things more complicated. Here at Sam Expert, we believe that it doesn't have to be like that. Sam Expert is a global, independent consultancy, a recognized leader in FinOps and Microsoft license management. We're on a mission to take the nonsense out of Microsoft licensing. Small business through to a multinational enterprise, we have your back. Over the last 20 years, our experts have helped organizations like Western Digital, IKEA, Capital One, Heathrow, Amdocs. We are driven by the passion to get things right, to make complex simple, to crack the frustrating licensing puzzles and help you personally take control. By joining forces with Sam Expert, you can be sure you are compliant. What's more, you'll get the best return on investment in Microsoft software and the cloud. Of course, if you're not worried about compliance and costs, there's no need to pick up the phone. But if you are,